Thank you for joining us again for another year of PlantRight's annual Spring Nursery Survey. We're really delighted to have you back on board for another year, so without further ado, let's dive into this refresher video for returning volunteers. We've broken up this video into 3 different sections. First, we're going to cover the basics of invasive plants and answer the question, why do we care? And then we're going to review the results and impacts of last year's nursery survey, and finish by going over instructions for this coming year's survey. So, let's begin by explaining what invasive plants are. By definition, invasive plants are foreign or not native to an area. However, keep in mind that not all foreign plants are invasive. And just because a plant is invasive in a certain climate zone, like California's south coast, it doesn't necessarily make it invasive in others, like the Sierra Nevada or the Central Valley. But where they are invasive, these plants spread on their own, meaning that they don't need irrigation, soil amendments, or tillage in order to thrive. And by spreading on their own, these invasive plants can cause measurable harm, whether it's financial, environmental, or to human health. But how do invasive plants actually cause harm? It's a really great question. Let's take a look at a few examples. From an ecological perspective, invasive plants will often move in and entirely take over an area, crowding out existing plants and the wildlife that rely on them. This picture shows a coastal dune that's been completely covered with Carpobrotus edulis, highway ice plant. You can see it's made it awfully difficult for anything else to grow here. And this doesn't just affect the native plants. For example, coastal dunes form the most important nesting habitat for the western snowy plover, the small shorebird shown in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. And as a result of habitat losses like this one, the western snowy plover is now federally listed as a threatened species. Invasive plants can also alter soil composition. Scotch broom plants on the left are nitrogen fixers, depositing nitrogen into the soil, making it easier for other invasives to invade and harder for natives to reestablish. Salt cedar, Tamarack tramicissima, in the middle, takes up lots of water and deposits salts onto the ground, inhibiting other plants from growing. And blue gum eucalyptus, Eucalyptus globulus, on the right, has toxins in its leaves that when they decompose on the forest floor, prevent the growth of other plants in the understory. Invasives can also alter hydrology, or the water cycle in a region. This picture here on the screen is not a meadow, but rather a stream in the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta that's been completely taken over by water hyacinth. This not only reduces the flow of water and makes it difficult for terrestrial wildlife to access it, but it also destroys the aquatic wildlife underneath by reducing oxygen and sunlight levels. These water hyacinth invasions also have a significant economic impact on shipping and recreational boating and water storage in the Delta. What about some of the other economic impacts? Well, several invasive plants in California are highly flammable, and they can increase fire intensity, causing fires to burn bigger, hotter, and longer. These fires are expensive to control and can cause significant damage to private property and public infrastructure. When invasive plants grow in cropland, they're considered weeds. And as the top agricultural state in the country, a lot of money is spent controlling these weeds, which result in lost agricultural yields and lowered land values. Altogether, invasive plants like these are very difficult and expensive to control. Each year, California spends over $80 million monitoring, mapping, and controlling invasive plants. But this doesn't take into account some of the harder to calculate costs, and it's actually likely much higher. Here's a summary table of the varied and significant impacts of invasive plants. And while it's certainly not exhaustive, it's part of why we think this issue is so important. Now, you're probably asking yourself, well, how did all these plants get here in the first place? If we're going to address this, we're going to need to understand where they're coming from. Well, in 2003, a University of California study revealed that almost half of all invasive plants in California were introduced through the horticultural industry. However, it's important to note that many of these invasive plants, like pampas grass for example, were introduced over 100 years ago before their invasive tendencies were known. And while only a small percentage of the ornamental plants we use become invasive, this showed us how important it is to partner with the industry going forward. Here's another invasive plant that you're probably familiar with, pampas grass, or Cordaderia celoana. However, it's not an invasion site like it looks like. It's actually the growing grounds of a wholesale nursery in the Central Valley, and it's where the source of a new invasion can begin. Here's that same plant for sale at a retail nursery. Surveys in the past years found pampas grass available at about 5% of nurseries in California, and you can imagine someone unaware of its invasiveness seeing this beautiful plant in a store, purchasing it, planting it in their yard, and it just taking off. Each of these plumes can contain up to 10,000 seeds, and the tiny seeds can travel 2 miles in the wind, allowing it to spread into neighboring hillsides and taking over surrounding natural areas. And like most invasive plants, pampas grass is very flammable, it crowds out natives, and it doesn't provide good habitat for wildlife. It's really difficult to remove once it's established. Pampas grass is already widespread in California, particularly along the South Coast, in the Central Valley, and in the Bay Area, and it's only projected to keep spreading. And while it's not illegal to sell pampas grass, if we continue to do so, this problem's only going to get worse. And before we know it, we're going to have more sites like this one. This here is BJ Burns. He's a fourth-generation farmer in San Mateo County. He was recently quoted as saying, "I'm several miles inland from where it was first planted, and we're seeing it now in the hillsides and along the creeks. There are places around here so choked with pampas grass you can't use the land to grow anything anymore." This, in essence, is why we care, and it's the motivation for why the Plant Right program was started. To give you a little bit of background, Plant Right's run by the nonprofit Sustainable Conservation. Sustainable conservation helps California thrive by uniting people to solve the toughest challenges facing our land, air, and water. We bring together businesses, landowners, and government to steward the resources that we all depend on in ways that make economic sense. And we do this because we believe that finding common ground is the best way to protect California's resources. We recognize the importance of the issue of invasive plants, and in 2005, we brought together a diverse alliance of leaders from the 4 sectors you see here on the screen. And together, these leaders created the Plant Right program to tackle this issue in a way that's collaborative, voluntary, and science-based. Plant Right partners with plant growers and retailers, professional gardeners, and landscapers to stop the sale of invasive plants and promote similar, safer alternatives in their place. And we do this through a variety of outreach and educational programs, like our annual Spring Nursery Survey. This brings us to our next section, in which we're going to cover the results and impacts of last year's survey, which many of you likely participated in, and wouldn't have been possible without your help. Our 2015 Spring Nursery Survey was our 6th annual, and it was our biggest success yet. Last year, we worked with over 150 volunteers to collect data from 265 stores in 38 counties around the state. We couldn't have been more thrilled. As you might remember, our survey acts as the guiding light of our program, allowing us to track the retail market for invasive plants in California, knowing which plants are being sold where and by whom. And by giving us this concrete sense of where plants continue to be sold, our survey provides the information we need to update our list of invasive plants, removing the ones that aren't really being sold anymore and adding new threats as they're realized. Altogether, this helps inform our strategy for effectively engaging the retail industry and influences the rest of our programs. This graph here on the screen shows the results from our past 5 surveys. We're really excited to see a general decreasing trend over time. Last year, about 35% of the nurseries we surveyed sold 1 or more plants that we were surveying for, which you can see here in the dark brown bar in the top left of this chart, which decreased from 44% the year before. Because we updated our official list for the first time in 2014, this chart separates the results into 2 categories. This green line, down here at the bottom, shows the availability of plants on our original list, which we created in 2006. And starting in 2012, we saw the availability of these plants decline steadily from all the way up at 30%, down to about 13% last year. And this is mainly due to a decrease in the availability of periwinkle, or Vinca major, from 18% in 2013, down to 9% in 2014, and all the way down to just 5% last year. This gold line shows the number of stores selling the most recently added plants on our official list, and those are Mexican feathergrass, water hyacinth, and yellow water iris. We're really excited to see this decrease down to 30% last year. And the majority of this can actually be attributed to Mexican feathergrass, which decreased from 39% in 2014 down to 25% last year. It's still the most commonly sold plant on our list, but we're really thrilled to see this positive progress. As I mentioned earlier, the information collected on this survey plays a critical role in helping us update our official list of the most commonly sold invasive garden plants in California. Using last year's survey data, we are really excited to make another update to our list. This new and improved version will be released at the end of February 2016. And to learn more about these changes, we encourage you to log on to plantright.org and check them out. This list and the information we collect through the survey has also informed and enhanced our outreach to the retail nurseries that are selling invasive plants through our Retail Nursery Partnership Program. This program was developed to provide resources on invasive plants and support nurseries in promoting non-invasive alternatives for their customers. As retail nursery partners, stores commit to the PlantRight Pledge not to sell invasive plants, to phase out any invasives that they have in stock, and to graduate all their plant buyers through our PlantRight 101 online training. In return, they receive a number of great benefits, including invasive plant expertise and recommendations for better non-invasive alternatives, educational resources and marketing materials like study guides and training for their staff, and promotion through PlantRight's network. And above all else, they gain recognition as leaders on this issue. Here's a list of some, but certainly not all, of our current retail partners in California. We're very excited to have recently gained commitments from the Home Depot and Lowe's in California, each with hundreds of locations across the state. And we're really excited that these businesses have followed the lead of the smaller independent nurseries that have helped pave the way for our program. In addition to these retail partners, we've also gained commitments from a few of the largest and most influential plant growers in the state, including Altman Plants and Monrovia. So keep an eye out for this PlantRight Partner decal on display at some of these locations, like here at the Garden Company in Santa Cruz. Now that you heard about the impacts our survey has had on our work, let's cover how you can participate this year. Due to the seasonal nature of gardening in California, with the timing of spring varying regionally, as I'm sure you all know, we have split our survey into 2 regions with different timing. In Southern California, including in south of San Luis Obispo, Kern, and San Bernardino counties, our survey will begin at the end of February and the beginning of March, and run through May. And in Northern California, which is actually north of San Luis Obispo, Kern, and San Bernardino counties, our survey runs from about mid-April through the end of June. This year, we've randomly selected 300 stores from the thousands in the California Department of Food and Agriculture's online directory. This selection process is random for statistical purposes, and it's done proportionally to the population in each county. For example, there are going to be more nurseries available to survey in Los Angeles and Sacramento counties than there are in Glenn or Sierra counties, which have lower populations. Let's review how to get involved. The steps include creating an account on plantright.org if you haven't already, completing a short 5-question quiz, selecting a store or a few to survey in your region, gathering the appropriate materials, visiting the store and collecting data, usually the most fun part, submitting your data and any photos you took on the PlantRight website, and finally, providing us with some feedback on your experience. This last part's optional, but we really do encourage it. It's really nice to hear from you, get your input and suggestions for how to improve our survey in the future. And I'll note that all these steps, except of course actually visiting the stores that you've signed up for, will be completed on our website. And here's a screenshot of that website, plantright.org. The first thing that you're going to want to do on our website is log on, which you can do down here in the bottom left part of the screen, where it shows email or username and password. If you have an account, but you simply can't remember your username or password, no problem. You can click the Request New Password link to have access info sent to your email address. If you don't have an account, or want to create a new one with a different email address, you can do so by clicking this link to Create New Account and following the instructions to create Spring Survey Account in the middle of the page. After logging in, the Spring Survey tab is going to appear in the menu on the left-hand side of the page. Next, you'll want to take the short 5-question quiz by clicking the link marked by the arrow here. These questions are designed to be pretty straightforward and easy, especially for returning volunteers like you, and they simply exist to ensure that you viewed the webinar or the refresher video. To pass, you must answer at least 4 out of the 5 questions correctly. But don't worry, you'll be able to take the quiz more than once, and if it's helpful, feel free to review this video or the recorded webinar at any time. After passing that quiz, you'll be taken to the instructions page, which should serve as your home base. You can access this through the instructions link in the sidebar, as shown by the arrow, and it walks you through each stage of the survey process and includes links to all the relevant materials. You can also find these materials on the Survey Materials tab, shown by the arrow. As you see, the first step is to review the list of nurseries to survey. You can access this list through the sidebar, shown by the arrow, or through a link in the instructions text. The nurseries are going to become available to sign up on our website at noon on February 29th in Southern California, and at noon on April 18th in Northern California. After they are posted, the nursery list page will look like this. To make it easier to find a nursery near you, you can sort these stores by county. And once you find a store that you'd like to survey, just click the text on the right-hand side of the screen where it says Survey this nursery. This will take you to a new page that asks if you're sure that you'd like to survey the nursery, and after you click yes, you'll receive a confirmation email from our system with information about the store, and then the store is going to drop off the list of available nurseries. If you'd like to see information on the nurseries you signed up for, just click the My Nurseries link in the sidebar menu, where all the nurseries you've claimed will show up. If for some reason you're unable to conduct your survey and you want to unclaim a store, you can do so on the My Nurseries page by clicking the individual store you'd like to unclaim, and then clicking the Unclaim This Nursery link at the bottom of the page. What happens if you go to the nursery list and find that there are no stores left? If that's the case, we recommend you get in touch with us as soon as you can. We'd be happy to help you find a store or two that'll work for you. In some cases, there could be stores in neighboring counties that could also work well for you. Perhaps you're already making a trip in that area, or you're relatively close to the county border and the store is not too far out of your way. Sometimes this could be a great way for counties with extra volunteers to help counties with fewer. And if you're interested in surveying a store outside your county, we recommend you wait about 2 weeks after the stores become available before signing up, to allow volunteers in that county to do so if they're interested. Once you've chosen a nursery to survey, your next step is to gather the materials. These materials include the survey instructions, the survey form, the Plant ID guide, and the explanation sheet. These materials are available on our website, found at the Survey Materials link, as well as on the instructions page. We recommend that you print these and take them with you to your store. And we recommend that you specifically print the Plant ID guide in color. If you're unable to print any of these, just let us know and we'd be more than happy to mail them to you. Here's the survey instructions checklist. It's really similar to the instructions page on our website, but we recommend you take this with you just in case you don't have an internet connection and have some questions while you're at the store. Here's the survey form. This form includes each of the plants on our survey this year and has a space for each item of information we'd like to collect. The list is organized by growth type, as I've highlighted here in orange with the grasses, and it includes space for basic information like the date and your name at the top of the form. In particular, I want to highlight this space for the store code. We identify the store by a code rather than by a name in order to protect the store's identity and conduct our survey in best faith with the industry. There's also a space for additional information on how long it took you to conduct the survey, what the store's response was, if it had one, and any other notes you want to include. I'd also like to highlight this space for cultivar name and/or plants in the same genus. A plant may have a cultivar name when it's a variety of an existing plant species, and these cultivar names are commonly in single quotations. For example, the cultivar of Cordaderia celoana, ivory feathers. We ask that you record this information here, along with the names of any plants that you find in the same genus as plants on our list, such as different types of pennisetums. If you find an especially large number of cultivars, no need to worry. Simply list as many as you can in this section or in the section for notes at the bottom of the back page. One of the first things you'll notice as you're trying to record all the information is that the signage for each of these stores is going to be very different. We might not always have all the information available to us, like scientific names on the labels or the name of the grower, etc. And with this in mind, we simply ask that you do the best you can and record all the information that is available to you. Next, we have this Plant ID guide with pictures of each of the plants on our survey this year. Often, these plants look really different in stores than they do in the wild, especially depending on the time of year. So to help you identify the plants, we've included extra inset photographs for many of them, like these of green fountain grass, Pennisetum statium, on the left, and periwinkle, Vinca major, on the right. The last material on this list is our explanation sheet. This contains background information about PlantRight, our survey, and answers to some frequently asked questions, which you can use to answer questions you might encounter during your visit. And this leads us again to the question of how exactly should you interact with store staff? Well, we do our best to conduct our survey in good faith with the nursery industry, just like all of our programs. And since this survey is not tied to any regulatory efforts and all the information is kept confidential, there's really no risk for stores to participate. So as a result, we do welcome you to inform the stores that you're there to conduct the survey. No disguises are necessary. And if you find yourself talking with a store employee, it could be a good opportunity to use the explanation sheet we put together. It has a lot of good talking points, and you can leave it with the store staff if you'd like. We encourage you to refer staff to PlantRight's website, which is included on that explanation sheet, if they have questions that you're not sure how to answer, or if they'd like to learn more. If you'd prefer not to engage the store staff, that's totally okay too. Information gathering like this happens in the industry, and our survey is not unique. In the unlikely event that you are asked not to complete the survey, please respect the store's request and leave courteously. If this happens, please just let us know and we can address it on a case-by-case basis. Usually things can be solved by a quick phone call. This has only happened a handful of times over the past few years, but we'd like you to be prepared just in case. Lastly, I'd like to remind you that the purpose of this survey is data collection and not outreach. So we kindly ask that you refrain from doing any advocacy during your nursery visit. That being said, if you are interested in playing more of an ambassador role and engaging your favorite stores about this issue, we invite you to become a PlantRight ambassador through our continuing education program. Get in touch with us or visit our continuing education page on our website if you're interested. Once you have all your materials, your next step will be to visit the store. This is the fun part. We recommend you give yourself about 45 to 90 minutes for the survey, and how long it will actually take you depends on the store size, the layout, and how well plants are labeled. It's helpful to note that annuals, indoor plants, edibles, and native plants are not going to be showing up on our survey list, so you can skip those sections entirely. Now, if you do find an invasive plant, the first thing you want to do is record the available information on the survey form. Next, you'll want to take a photo of that plant, and this is really important. We ask that you take at least 2 photos, one of the plant itself and one close-up of the plant label. These photos are really important to us because they allow us to verify the identity of the plant. In some cases, plants can be mislabeled, so if there's extra confusion, just collect all the information you see and maybe take a few extra photos to help us verify the plant's identity. This year, we're also asking you to take and submit photos of the cultivars that you find of the invasive plants on our list. To give you an example, it's considered Pennisetum cetaceum, green fountain grass, which you see here on the screen. This plant has many cultivars, the majority of which are not problematic, including this cultivar called Fireworks, this one called Bunny Tails, this one Fairy Tales, and this one Eden Canyon. If you find an unreasonably large number of cultivars, don't feel obligated to submit a photo of each. Simply list them on the data collection form as we mentioned above. And remember, there's no need to include photos of related plants, like this one, Pennisetum orientale, which is in the same genus, Pennisetum, but is actually a different species. Just note their presence on the datasheet. Sometimes photos can be distant, blurry, or lacking in reference, which makes it really difficult for us to verify the plants. And because these photos are so critical, we do like to emphasize the importance of taking clear photos. And if you have a digital camera with you, it might be helpful to check over your photos before you leave the store, just in case you need to take a couple more. And remember, there's no harm in taking some extra photos. If it's an especially beautiful day, you particularly like the layout of a store, you find some quirky installments, send us a few extra photos. It's great to see pictures of you and your team in the nurseries you visit. Once you finish your surveys, you'll need to get back online to submit your data. After you've logged into our website, you'll see options for Submit a Survey and Upload Photos. Click the Submit a Survey tab on the left-hand side of the screen, and you'll be taken to a submission page that has fields identical to the survey form. You'll simply select the store you surveyed, input your data, and click Submit. After you transfer your photos from your camera to your computer, you can submit them online by clicking the Upload Photos tab. You can choose which pictures to upload by clicking the Photo button right below the photo you see here, and in the description field, please enter the plant name and whether it's the plant or the tag. If you have any trouble with this, please don't hesitate to get in touch. After submitting the results, you'll receive a confirmation email, which will include a link to a voluntary feedback questionnaire. And like I said, this is voluntary, but we really do appreciate your feedback, and we use it to improve the survey in the future. And just like that, you're finished. If you're a Master Gardener, don't forget to log your volunteer service and continuing education hours online through the Master Gardener Volunteer Management System. And that's it. Thank you all so much for joining us again this year. It's great to work with you. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out through our website, by phone, or by email. Thanks again. We look forward to working with you.